Welcome to Introduction to Computer Science in C#, written by myself, Dr. Andrew Harrington, and my collaborator, Dr. George Theravadakal. At the moment, you're looking at the cover of the PDF version of the notes. We are going to more generally use the HTML version, where I'm showing you the beginning here, which starts with the table of contents. You can display this in two fashions, with various places you can jump to shown along the side, or by clicking on the edge here you can hide this. You can use this text in many ways. I want to point out one thing that's in this section is that you can search. For instance, I can look up white space, and you see here that I can click on a place that it talks about white space. So that's one way to find things. Another way is the index. We have lots of stuff in the index. Here, if I go to W, here's another way we could find where I talk about white space. So let's start looking at the content here. First of all, this section of the video is going to be on Chapter 1, on the context here. One other point, there is a more detailed index if you click on a chapter heading. There you see this goes to a deeper level, all of the subsections down to the exercises here. Now let's begin the main subject of this video, which is Chapter 1. A good introduction involves general concepts of computer science and compilers and languages, and there is a free online book here by Rob Miles. I encourage you to look at the first chapter in his PDF here. You can download it and look at it. These notes that we're writing are continuously updated. I want to remind you that if you can go to the site here where we have our repository and it shows you recent changes. Very important thing here is to download the course examples. You'll want to download this zip file and unzip it where you can use it. It's also possible to browse individual files by looking at another part here of our repository where the source code is. I'm showing you just one version of the notes here. This is the default theme by the software that generates these notes, Sphinx. Here's an alternate version that you might like better. This plays well on small devices, although if you jump to a hyperlink, this top band can cover the stuff you want to look at the highest level. You can also download all the HTML, so you do not need to be connected to the internet. The main disadvantages of that are, since these notes do get updated, you can look at the date online of the latest version at the bottom of the index page here. You can see when this version was created. But you can, then have a copy. Another disadvantage is that the search option that I showed you earlier requires this to be on a server, and unless you've got a server hooked up to your web pages on your local machine, that part won't work. The PDF file that I showed you briefly is also possible. Some people also like that not only for being printed, but for viewing on a wide enough screen. The fonts are slightly different, and some people like that better. There's also an ebook file. You do have to be careful because it leaves out diagrams. There are other file formats here on our server if you want something appropriate for Linux or something else. Let's go on to the next section. As I mentioned, the Miles PDF that's free on the internet, it gives a good context. We have not at this point tried to duplicate it or substitute for it. So that's the intended introduction to computing. He has a funny and informative first chapter. One thing to note in his chapter is that the C# language that we're going to be used was originally developed by Microsoft, and its main environment for Microsoft is in Visual Studio. Miles' chapter follows Visual Studio. We have found that a large number of our students are running on Macs or on Linux machines, and Visual Studio doesn't work there. So we are using a different implementation of C# for the Mono framework, where you have free downloads for all the different operating systems. That's discussed more later. Now, on to an introduction to C#, data and operations.